Ugh. I may have misjudged the Packers. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Command Show. My name is Graham Mitchell, and we are here to talk about everything involving the Washington Commanders getting their butts absolutely kicked 27-18 on the road against the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football. Guys, this is the 5 Names to Remember series, week 2 edition, where I go over the top 5 players to remember for good, bad, and ugly reasons coming out of that Thursday night game and after every game throughout the course of the season. Make sure you guys hit the like button if you do enjoy the content here out on the channel, coming out with daily uploads. So make sure you hit the subscribe button as well if you want to be locked into everything that is going on. And without further ado, let's go ahead and let's talk about what I saw from this game. So I don't even quite know where to start here. This was an all-time butt kicking, and it might not look like it if you didn't watch the entire game, or if your kids were running around and you couldn't pay very close attention, or you just go look at the box score, look at the final score, 27-18. Not a one-score game, but 1 point away from being one. Looks close. 27 points. Probably not a blowout, right? I can honestly say this game felt further apart than the NFC Championship game did to me. That's my initial reaction. I thought that last night watching the game as it was happening, and I woke up feeling the same way. And that sounds so weird because it was a 9-point game versus a 32-point game in the championship. I always say this, and it's kind of a meme at this point. The Commanders had scored on a drive beforehand. They were marching down the field. They were at the 50-yard line. Austin Eckler fumbled. If they had scored on that drive, it would have been a 3-point game in the fourth quarter of the championship game. And the Eagles were totally outplaying the Commanders in that game. But it felt like physical domination. It felt like varsity versus JV for the most part. It felt like bullies not picking on someone their own size. It felt like they were just leaning on them with the line, the speed of the linebackers, everything. This game felt so different, not because the Packers weren't physically dominant, because they were, but everything felt so crisp. Every offensive action for the Packers was intentional. It had a purpose. The linebackers, Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper, they were so connected with one another. Green Bay was missing 2 of their top 3 corners. You would have never known because they were all over every concept the Commanders had for them. They kept Jayden in the pocket. They got pressure. They mixed up the looks. It was an outstanding performance by the Green Bay Packers. And before I get any further into this, I need to atone for some of the things that I said. I need to raise my hands because I believe in accountability. I was so wrong about the Green Bay Packers. This is why you don't say things before the games happen. Not that you can't predict and speculate, but this is why you don't draw conclusions before the game happened. And I got myself caught up in that. Because the Packers here, that 2-0, 2 dominant wins against 2 very strong opponents, they look like the Super Bowl hype is real. I was wrong for saying that it was an overreaction. No, people were just ahead of the curve. They weren't waiting to see what we now have all seen. They were saying, I can predict what's going to happen, and they were absolutely right. Peter Schrager, I'm sorry. I've said that the Packers could not shut down Jayden Daniels because it only happened one time in his career, and it was when he had a broken rib. It's against the Eagles last year. That was the worst game of Jayden's career, as far as I'm concerned. That was the worst game of his entire career. The Packers absolutely shut him down. I know he finished with 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. It looks like a solid game. It looks like an okay game from him. He was terrible, and it's not just him. There's plenty of blame to go around, but I was wrong. The Packers were elite. They shut down Jayden Daniels. And now let me actually just talk about what happened here. So I thought this was remarkable game plan, strategy, and execution by the Packers, and specifically Matt LaFleur. The constant motion used to keep the Commanders' defense off balance was just remarkable. Whether there were 2 running backs in the backfield, whether it was a 12, 13 tight personnel with your tight ends out on the side, whether it was receivers coming across on jet sweeps or screens or just misdirection. You got a fake jet sweep this way with a run going back left with 2 running backs in the backfield. There was the defense, the Commanders' defense had no clue what to do. The touchdown to Kraft, I thought, was so emblematic of that. Kraft comes in motion, left to right, behind the line of scrimmage. You can identify its man coverage with Mike Sainristil, which already we've got a 5'8" nickel against a 6'5" tight end, which is certainly a choice to be made, but nonetheless. So Sainristil motions over with him. When Kraft gets down in the stance, Sainristil hard sets the edge. He goes to the outside to, again, preserve the edge in case it's a run play in that direction. So then they just motion Kraft right back across to where he came from. And now Sainristil not only has to travel back and catch him, but he actually has to back up because he's up on the line of scrimmage. He has to back up so he can run behind the linebackers and the linemen. And the Packers snap the ball, and it's literally a free touchdown to Kraft. And I'm not even going to say that it's Sainristil's fault necessarily. I mean, it is, but like, what's he supposed to do? It was just, again, brilliant tactical awareness and execution from the Packers. A lot of their RPOs, this was a very small nuance, but a lot of their RPOs and play action plays were so slow developing that you were inviting the Commanders like, come on, sink down. Come on. Come crash into the backfield. Please come sack the quarterback. Come get a tackle for loss on Josh Jacobs. And bam, they pull that thing out. And you've got these deep passing concepts. Jordan Love in this game, his average depth of target was 15 yards. So the average for where he threw the ball was 15 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. He was pushing the pedal to the metal in this game. And the Commanders got burned early on. You saw there was a 50-yard touchdown that I think to Jayden Reed, because he ended up breaking his collarbone on this play. Prayers to him. Prayers to a lot of people in this game, by the way. Lots of injuries in this game. We're going to talk about that more later. But it was called back for a holding, but you saw right there, okay, they are not playing. There were a couple of deep shots to Matthew Golden over the middle, which Jordan Love just missed on. It's pretty uncharacteristic. That's where his specialty is, those deep downfield passes. Trey Amos made a great play on one of them, getting back and breaking the ball up. But if Love puts that on target, that's an easy touchdown. He was spraying that ball. And what it did was it set the precedent early on to the Commanders, said, hey, you got to cover every blade of grass back there. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. I thought Quan Martin particularly had a very poor game as far as coverage goes. He had a couple of nice tackles, but overall with his coverage instincts, he did not do a good job. Marshon Lattimore, it's hard for me to believe that this is a guy who was a Defensive Player of the Year candidate at one point in his career. What happened? Where are the excuses? I'm going to talk more about Lattimore later. Keep in mind, this is my 5 names to remember series. So a little bit of foreshadowing that we might get an appearance there. But this is the guy that the Commanders traded for to completely revitalize their pass defense. He looks no better than Benjamin St-Juste or Emmanuel Forbes or Michael Davis. You look like you might be better with Noah Igbenogany and Jonathan Jones taking his reps. This is a huge conversation to have. I'm going to move on right now because I'm going to say some things that I'm not allowed to say on YouTube, but Lattimore was horrendous. The Commanders' defense, now I will say this. It was a really bad start to the game. I'm not leaving this game upset with them because I thought that they did adjust for the most part. I have no clue why they came out after spending the entire offseason saying they're going to be an aggressive man coverage style of team. I have no clue why they came out playing soft zone coverage, which Love was just shredding to pieces. But I will say it, I got to at least give some credit to Joe Jr. for realizing the reality of what was happening when they were down 14-3, and he adjusted. He did turn up the heat. He did show some aggressiveness, and the Commanders, they got stops on plays and drives when they needed to keep the game in bounds, to give the offense an opportunity to come back in the game and at least leave the door cracked so the offense could try to walk through that door, but they never did. But I don't leave this game that upset with the defense. I'll be honest. They did a very nice job of containing Josh Jacobs. They were tested and exposed a little bit early on, but later in the game, again, the Packers weren't doing a whole lot. And when you consider how heavily they dominated the time of possession battle, it's remarkable they didn't get to 40 points because they outgained the Commanders. What was the final stats here? I'm sorry, because I was looking at this last night. The final stats here, the Commanders finished with 230 yards, a ton of those right at the end of the fourth quarter. The Packers had 404. The time of possession battle doesn't end up looking that awful. It's 32-26 to 27-34. But at the end of the third quarter, that all this stuff was just completely lopsided. So it is kind of remarkable that the Commanders didn't end up giving up more points than they did. And it is a testament to the defense, honestly. I have to say, they remained engaged. They remained ready to fight. Josh Jacobs was held to 3.7 yards per carry. I'm not walking away mad at them. I am walking away thinking the Commanders' offense totally blew it. Now, they looked out of sorts in that first game against the Giants, and that's fair. It's the first game of the season. You had your Terry stuff. You had your Noah Brown stuff. Sam Cosmi's out there. Whatever, I get it. I'm going to get into the game script later because it deserves its own segment. But the Commanders in this game were held to 0.1 yards per carry before contact. And they gave up 33 pressures. Both of those are horrific, awful, egregious, disgusting, repulsive. Whatever terms you want to use, they are appropriate here. That is awful. That is like first pick in the draft type of stuff. So the protection plans were terrible. Rip them up, throw them out, pick them back up, put them in a shredder, and then light them on fire. Because that didn't work. But on top of that, the linemen just did not execute. And John Bates got injured. And I love John Bates, right? We all love John Bates. If we were going to say that we are reliant upon John Bates to just hold up in simple pass protection to create 3 to 4 yard runs, then Lord have mercy. We need a lot of help. If John Bates is that integral to the offense's success, that is a major, major problem. This offense, they looked out of sorts in week 1, and you could try to explain your way. There's nothing to say here. The receivers were not winning on the outside. The running game, there wasn't even really an attempt made to get the running game going. And then I'll be honest, when Bill Krosky-Merritt got his carries, he had 4 carries in this game. All of them were for at least 4 yards. So why didn't we get to the running game more? Why didn't we try to establish that? Why couldn't we get to the no-huddle tempo, which is the key to keeping this defense off balance, until late in the third quarter? None of this game from the offense made sense as far as the game planning and the execution of that, but then also the players, they just didn't step up to the plate. I mentioned the outside receivers. I watched every drop back on the All-22 this morning. They just weren't winning. Simply put, the first 3 quarters of the game, they were not getting open. Noah Brown, not getting open. And even when the ball came his way, did not do a good job making plays on the ball. There was one where he had one-on-one on the right side, just went right through his hands. There's another one where I think it was actually a very similar situation. He barely even jumped for the ball. Terry really only won one route on the left, and then the ball, I want to say, was out of bounds by Jayden. And then your Lanes, your McCaffreys, when he got in the game, nobody was open. There was nowhere to go with the ball. Now, with that being said, as the game wore on and Green Bay started taking the pressure off a little bit, when you get to the end of the third quarter, when you get to the fourth quarter, Jayden was missing a lot of reads. And I think it was just it was conditioning. It was learned behavior at that point. He was expecting all of his players to be covered. So I think, and he knew pressure was coming. So I think he was just totally jumpy, skittish in the pocket. So he was tucking and running. He looked like Russell Wilson did towards the end of that first game when the Giants were playing the Commanders. But there was a play, I wrote it down in my notes. Let me just find it real quick. Oh, the play late in the third quarter where Colson Yankoff comes in and he's a quarterback, and then they motion out to 12 personnel setup. Ben Sinnott was wide open up the seam for a touchdown, but Jayden didn't look at him. I forget where he went with the ball, but he didn't look at him. And late in the third quarter again, Debo and Terry had an overlap on deep crossers. Jayden was about to get drilled, just like he was all night, but Debo was there to give him a throw with anticipation. If Jayden anticipates that throw, it's a wide open 20-plus yard gain. Then in the fourth quarter, Jayden has Noah on a 15-yard dig on the right side, and said he stares down Terry for a one-on-one up the sideline with safety help over the top, and it ends up going out of bounds. That's a play that I was actually just talking about. So as the game went on, early on, it's hard for me to be too hard on him because Green Bay was using 2 spies at some point. Not just one, but 2 spies. And those spies, it was the linebackers who have all the speed in the world. So he wasn't able to run anywhere, which means you think, hey, If you've got 4 guys up on the line of scrimmage and then you have 2 spies, that's 5 players on the back end. We've got 5 guys going out on routes. Get man coverage most likely. If it's zone, you're going to be really stretching that. Go win on the outside. And the receivers looked totally incapable of doing that. So this was just one of the most frustrating games, from the lack of awareness and proper intelligent game planning to adjusting on the fly to winning your one-on-ones to your quarterback getting skittish and failing to go through his reads and his progressions. It completely broke down. And before I get into my 5 names to remember, I have to bring this up. Terry McLaurin. For someone who waited to get all that money, made such a massive fuss, ate up the entire offseason, he has come back and done approximately nothing productive. He had 5 catches for 48 yards in this game. I think 2 of those might have been on the final offensive drive or the final 2 offensive drives. They were late in the fourth quarter when it didn't matter. He had like 3 catches for 20, 30-something yards for the game when it was still at least in balance, at least when it was competitive. When if everything went right and the Commanders scored touchdowns on their 2 final drives, maybe we get this thing to overtime, right? You remember the 4th and 7 with Zach Ertz, where he actually catches the ball, but it was a defensive holding, so you get the automatic first down anyway, fourth quarter. Commanders had gone for 4th down 1 time before that. I think it was a 4th and 1. It was a run with Eckler, which they got, and I don't know why they ran with Eckler, because they got stuffed on a run with Eckler through the A-gap on 3rd down, and then they say, hey, for 4th down, let's run it through the A-gap with Eckler. He got tackled hit in the backfield like 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then the offensive line just threw him over. Anyway, you get to 4th down here, 4th and 7. Biggest play of the game. You know who's not on the field? Terry McLaurin. Mr. Moneybags. You know who is on the field? I'm going to try to remember this. Noah Brown, Deebo Samuel, Luke McCaffrey, Zach Ertz, and Jeremy McNichols. Jeremy McNichols was on the field as a receiving option on 4th and 7, while Terry McLaurin was sitting on the sideline. Now, the only reason McLaurin isn't getting a red square in this video is because I don't know if that was his decision or the coach's decision. But even if the coach say, hey, Terry, we have a designated number of reps for you. On the 4th down to keep your team in the game, Terry has the authority. I'm going to assume Terry has the authority to walk over and say, screw that, scrap that plan, throw it out the window. I'm coming in this game. My team needs me. He did not do that. Then you get to 4th and 4. The slant to Jalen Lane on the right side, which, why is that the play call? But whatever. You know who's not on the field? Terry McLaurin. It makes me furious. I was willing to give him week 1. And I said, hey, it's actually kind of unfair to demand this out of you in week 2. But with that being said, I am going to demand it. Because if you are going to hold out for the entire offseason, you better bring your ass to practice in shape. You better be ready to go. And to the coaching staff, if you know you have Terry on a limited number of reps, then you better bank some rest. So in the 4th quarter, on 3rd down, on 4th down, you know you can get him on the field. It was a total failure from all parties involved. And with that being said, this feels like a great time. Actually, no. Let me give my 30 seconds to the special teams. Special teams were brilliant. They were the only part of this game that went good for the Commanders. Matt Gay not included. Matt Gay, my gosh. Actually, this is going to take longer than 30 seconds because I just remembered what happened leading up to halftime. So the Commanders get the ball with they actually get it back before the 2-minute warning, and they're driving down the field, whatever. You get to maybe the point where there's 1 minute left. You're around the 50-yard line, and then they start taking their time. They were coaching scared, which is not something you saw from them at any point last season when they were the best 4th down team in NFL history. They started coaching scared. So you approach a 3rd down with 40 seconds left. You let 25 or so seconds of that run off the clock so that there's only 15 seconds until halftime. You call up your play, dial it up, whatever. It doesn't work. Now it's 4th and 4. So there's 15, 20 seconds left until halftime. If you're going to bleed the clock, you need to bleed it all the way so that the Packers didn't have an opportunity in the event of a missed field goal to then complete one pass and they're in field goal range, which they did. That is exactly what they did after that happened. But you either bleed the clock or you stick to what you knew all of last season. Be aggressive. You've got 3 timeouts. You go into halftime with 3 timeouts in your pocket. You can't take those with you, Dan Quinn. They reset at halftime. Can't take them home with you for bonus points. So you had 3 timeouts. Be aggressive or bleed the clock. They played the middle game, and when you aim to ride the fence, you normally don't end up getting either result. And lo and behold, what happens? You send Matt Gay out for a 58-yard field goal, knowing he was 3 of 9 on field goals from 50-plus yards last season. By all accounts, has not gotten any better with those long field goals during camp, during practice, during the preseason. They send him out there and he misses it. And like I said, the Packers complete 1 pass and they're in field goal range. Now, they ended up missing it, and that didn't really affect the final outcome. But it was horrible coaching. And Matt Gay, 1 of 3 on field goals in this game. This dude sucks. He is terrible as a kicker, and this is not a personal attack on him. It is an attack on his performances. He does not look capable of kicking a field goal from past 50 yards. Or if he does, then he's going to miss 2, and you're going to get a 33% conversion rate, which we did on Thursday night, which we did all of last season when we went 3 of 9 on kicks from 50-plus yards. Go sign John Love. Go find somebody. Right now, kicking field goals from beyond 50 yards is not an option for this offense. That's the way it goes. Percy Butler, very quick shout out. 3 great tackles on special teams. Deebo Samuel, shout out. When the team wanted to rally back, he takes the opening kickoff return of the second half back to the Packers 45, and then the Commanders don't get any points out of that. So shout out to special teams, except for Matt Gay. Oh, and shout out to Tressway. He was banged up, and he still did a great job punting the ball. With that out of the way, let's get to my 5 names to remember. If you are new around here, the 5 names to remember is a series that I put out after every game where I talk about 5 players who stuck out for good reasons, bad reasons, or maybe I'm indifferent to whatever it was. But in this game, let me just say that there's not a lot of good to go around. Now, the way this goes, these squares can be classified into 4 different colors. Red is horrible, awful, lost us the game. Yellow is, didn't like what I saw. I'm hesitant, but I'm not completely out. Green is good job. Dark green is a game ball. If you think I'm giving out a game ball tonight, you got another thing coming for you because we do not have a dark green in sight. We're going to start it off with a bright, scorching, scarlet ember red for Kliff Kingsbury. This was your magnum opus, but for just the worst game plan that I can remember seeing in a very, very long time. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt's on the team. I just want to say that. He showed last week that he was a very effective runner. He didn't get a carry until there were 7 minutes and 20 seconds left in the second quarter against a Green Bay defense that has tons of speed and loves to use disguise. So you would think the way to get them to show their hand is to run them out of their zone coverage and also set up the runs so that you're getting consistent plays so you can get to your no-huddle tempo to keep those fast players on the field, tire them out, keep them in stock coverages so they can't disguise everything. And you didn't get a run to your most productive runner until halfway through the second quarter. It's baffling to me, and it's not reactionary because this is something that I was calling for in my preview. I admit when I'm wrong. Peter Schrager said the Packers were going to shut down Jayden Daniels. I said, no way. I was totally wrong. I said the Packers Super Bowl hype was premeditated or premature. It was totally wrong. I got no problem saying that on this case, and I don't think I'm smarter than Kliff Kingsbury. But that's why it is a major problem to me that I called this so much better than he did. That's why it's an issue to me. Can I scheme up an offense better than Kliff Kingsbury? No, I can't. But I could tell you what was going to happen in this game. And I don't want to kick him in when he's down because I'm pretty sure Austin Ekeler tore his Achilles last night. And if that is awful. That's a huge blow to the team. That sucks for him. Got to say, that's one tough SOB. He seemed to know that it was torn instantly, assuming that it is. He didn't cry. He didn't pound the turf. He didn't do anything. He just got up, left, and he was looking for the camera, pointing at it, saying, like, I'm fine, waving at it. Like, I mean, that dude is nails. But with that, all that being said, who did we think Austin Ekeler was? Why are we treating him like he's a bell cow? Because we traded Brian Robinson Jr. doesn't mean Ekeler is now Brian Robinson Jr. When you keep 4 running backs, all of whom you feel good about, it's a committee. Spread out the work. Why are we running? So we're going up the gut between the A gap with Ekeler so frequently. Why? Why is that our plan? And that's when he actually got to run. To start the game, the first possession, it's just pass, 3 and out. And that set the stage for what was to come in this entire game. Where were the runs? Where was the tempo? Where was the cross-game merit usage? Where was the innovation? Again, I'm talking about the receivers weren't getting open. That's partly their fault. The route concepts, it was so standard. It was like Green Bay knew exactly what was coming their way, and that's with 2 of their 3 top corners missing. Where was the protection plan? You saw Josh Conerly gave up. He did okay, but he did lose some reps against Brian Burns and Abdul Carter last week. So why not try to help him out a little bit? Actually, I'd say that. There was one play where Ertz, I think it was Ertz, threw a chip on Rashawn Gary, and despite that, Gary just went right around Conerly and got a sack. But still, how do you not set the offense up better for success? Kliff did a great job last year, and it's like, wow, he's finally figured out these demons. He's finally figured out how to get past the slumps that he experienced when he was an offensive coordinator, when he was coach of the Cardinals, and now all of a sudden it looks like Kliff is back to being one of the worst OCs in the league. That's what it looks like. Off of 2 weeks, limited sample size, great defense. I get it. But he had no answers tonight. He was not prepared. His adjustments in-game were awful. And I don't want to absolve Jayden. I don't want to absolve the offensive line. I don't want to absolve anybody. But when the person making the decisions is having their worst game that they've had in their entire Commander's career, then they start us off, rightfully so, with a big fat red square. Now let's get to another red, because they are well deserving of it. Marshon Lattimore. Why did I hear all throughout the offseason the speed is back? The old Sean, the aggression, the physicality, it's here. He's feeling good. He's healthy. He's healthy. That's all you have told me. He's healthy. And he looks pretty healthy. So why is he getting cooked on every play? The Packers figured out, when I need a completion, find Marshon Lattimore for me. He was sticking on, it was Dobbs, was it Reed, whoever, it was Wicks, I think, maybe at some point. The Packers' first 4 pass attempts in this game, 2 completions against Marshon Lattimore and a DPI against Marshon Lattimore, or a holding, whatever it was. So 3 of the 4 were directly, the Packers benefited them directly because of Marshon Lattimore doing a poor job. It's not concerning to anybody that you heard Trey Amos's name one time all night and it was on a PBU. Mike Sainristil gave up 2 touchdowns. Marshon Lattimore, a veteran, former Defensive Player of the Year candidate. I think he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. Guy you gave draft picks for, 3 of them, to make a positive difference for your team. He was getting abused. Quan Martin didn't do a good job in coverage. Why is Trey Amos, who's a rookie, why is he the only one who was not exposed tonight? But Marshon Lattimore was the head of the snake in terms of just the disappointments of the coverage. When he was playing soft coverage, guys were getting open really with no resistance. He got lost on a crossing route when he was playing in man. He committed at least 2 penalties. I think he gave up at least 4 catches and committed at least 2 to 3 penalties in this game. He was awful. And again, the defense, I'm not overwhelmingly mad at. Like, they adjusted. And for how much strain they were under, they actually did a better job as the game wore on of getting stops. But Marshon Lattimore is not included in that. He was just awful from start to finish tonight. And now let me get to another member of the defense here. And it's sad. I don't like doing this, but Frankie Luvu, I'm going to give him a yellow because I don't think he did something that ruined the game or anything like that. But where is he? Is he back on the islands? Is he like, did he go home to vacation for the family? Did the Monstars take his talent? Is this Space Jam? What happened to Frankie Luvu? This is a second-team All-Pro we're talking about here. This is somebody who should be making plays. And this game on Thursday night, he looked just slow. He looked like he was slugging around. He was a step slow in pass coverage. He was a step slow rushing the passer. He was a step slow getting to the running back. He had 2 tackles, both of them assisted. Who really cares about that? He had 7 tackles in week 1, but the Giants weren't doing anything, so it's kind of easy to at least get some tackles. He has had no big plays this season, and tonight he was especially disappointing. But through 2 games, no sacks, no stuffs, no TFLs, no interceptions, no forced fumbles, no fumble recoveries, nothing. It's just tackles, and tonight only 2 of them for your starting linebacker who plays every snap of every game. It was unacceptable. It looked like he was freelancing towards the end of the game, and it ended up creating rushing lanes for Josh Jacobs to go through. He's ad-libbing. He's trying to hit guys. He's trying to pop guys as hard as he possibly can. There was a pass play. Actually, no, I take it back. It was the Jordan Love scramble up the right side in the first quarter. Luvu's trying to lay him out, and he just completely misses. And Love didn't even juke. He didn't spin. He didn't do anything. He just continued to run where he was running to, and Luvu just missed him. He's trying to hit guys as hard as he possibly can instead of just tackling them. So I don't know what happened to Frankie Luvu here, but he was bad. I'm not going to say awful because he wasn't Marshon Lattimore level, but man, where is that playmaker from last year? Where's the second team All-Pro? I didn't see it. Now let me take a break from this and give a green. I can't believe we have a green, but it wasn't fair for me to say that this was a total failure. So I'm going to give a green to the old guys, Bobby Wagner and Zach Ertz. It's very telling, troubling, but also very telling that the first time the Commanders got any sort of offensive rhythm was when they said, forget it, just find Zach Ertz, throw the ball to him. That was the game plan. It was in either the third or the fourth quarter, whenever they got their first touchdown. I think Ertz had 3 catches on that drive. Also, the 4th and 7 I was talking about earlier, that was to Zach Ertz. He caught the ball. I think it would have been a first down anyway, but it was a holding on the defense. You get that accepted. Ertz drew another penalty in the end zone, I think maybe leading up to the Commanders' second touchdown. That sets them up for a first down from like the 2-yard line that they score on. Zach Ertz, I mean, he still could be a top 10 tight end. And when I say it, I mean like 10th, but he still could be in that top 10 sort of range. For him to be 34 years old, and for the Commanders to have the other weapons they have with Terry McLaurin, who you just gave all this money to, with Deebo Samuel. Deebo wasn't bad in this game, but he certainly wasn't changing anything. For Zach Ertz to emerge as the leading receiver with 64 yards, a touchdown, he did a very nice job on that play. His 20-yard score where he got a lot of yards after catch. Like, I got nothing bad to say here. I'm troubled by it that's what we have to resort to get some sort of offensive rhythm. But you know what? That's not me condemning Zach Ertz, because he is still proving that whenever you need him, he is there. So shout out to Zach Ertz. And then Bobby Wagner, I wanted to throw him in here as well. After Dietrich Wise went down with his injury, because he was also injured. It looks like season-ending injuries for Wise and Eckler, which is truly just horrible. But after Wise went down, Bobby Wagner said, we got you, Wise. We got you, Wise. And although they didn't win the game, the defense did step up from that point on. There was one possession in the third quarter where the first 2 plays were stuffs at the line of scrimmage on runs by Bobby Wagner. And then on third down, he comes screaming on a blitz, hits Jordan Love. Jordan Love has to throw it away. Like, Wagner did his best to keep the Commanders' defense in this game. And I have to wonder, without him on the field, would they have given up 40 points? I think it's definitely in question. So greens for the old guys. And then we're going to close it out with a yellow, because it's only his second game. And I'm not turning my back on him at this point. But Josh Conerly, Conerly could have been the Commanders' worst player on the field. He was horrible. He gave up 9 pressures and 3 sacks, according to Pro Football Focus. He was getting taken to school by Rashawn Gary. I mentioned the play where Rashawn Gary there was a chip from Zach Ertz, a really good one, really effective one that knocked him back. And then he still got going and got around Conerly and got a sack on Jayden. Michael Parsons was tearing him a new one. He did not look strong. He did not look fast. He did not look confident. There was a possession in the third quarter. I think it might have been on that first possession of the second half after Deebo had returned the kick to the opposing 45. The Commanders are in field goal range. It's 3rd and 3. Conerly gives up a sack. Michael just blows right past him, knocks the Commanders back like 10, 12 yards, sets up a Matt Gay field goal from 52, which he then misses. So Conerly's poor performances literally took points off the board for the Commanders. And I've already been here for nearly 35 minutes now, so I'm going to leave it here. It's his second game. It's awful for him personally to have to start your career by going against Abdul Carter and then Michael Parsons and then Max Crosby. But at the same time, this is the NFL. And pretty much every team, except for the Commanders, has a star edge rusher that they're waiting to unleash on a rookie tackle. So you want to learn, you want to play in the NFL, you got to learn pretty fast. Guys, that is going to do it for my 5 names to remember here. I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. If you guys made it to the end of this video, make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed. Hit the subscribe button if you're new around here. To the returning subscribers, you guys are awesome. Go to the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on that disaster, whatever you got to say, your 5 players, any big thoughts, let me know. I'll be responding to as many as I can. And as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a great day.